Okay. Let's add a few more conditions here. I know there is like islands. That's how we make our herds. And your herd size, probably still logging it out as we speak. Yeah. Oh yeah. Alright, let's remove that log. We know that we're... No, still generating. Hey, Isdar. Let's check to see if our provinces have animals. Herds. Yep. Okay. So they were placed. They were created. They currently contain nothing. Hello. Yeah. So I guess now we need to give our herds qualities, create some criteria for where they appear and why. Right now we're just going to stick with bison so that we can represent grasslands. Forgive the boxes, by the way, that we haven't fixed our real world map mode yet. But I believe this was a really good place, yeah, to use. This should all be like temperate grassland in here. So this is where we really want to kind of keep track of whether our herds are doing well and whether they're sufficiently controlling the growth of trees. Here's the thing, though. We have to figure a few things out. Let's see. Giant arrays, animals. Oh. Did we not? I guess we didn't come up with stats for. We came up with some stats for deer and wild pigs, but apparently not bison. Oh, let me get in touch with Cal. just placing bison in the world, and it would be cool to see where they started dying out. In theory, yeah. I don't think it would be as effective as it would be good to see there appear, perhaps over other modes. Yeah, monies. Yes. Will grades be relative to their biomes using the animal packs? I mean, long term, that's the approach, right? So what we want to do is create for these herds like a generalized set of behaviors that use the qualities of each type of animal to plug into that behavior, right? And so a herd might decide, hey, if there's not enough resources in this province, should we move to another province? And basically they would check the conditions on the ground, have a slight random factor, but then they would also say, what kind of herd am I? What species? If I am a super mobile type of species, then we're significantly more likely to move to another tile that seems more favorable than, say, a bunch of deer who are relatively shy and don't want to move around a lot, right? So, alright, so here was all of the factors. Our wild pigs had a size of 80 kilograms. Grass consumption, they ate a little bit of grass-related stuff. Some shrubs, not much conifers, broadleaves, not much. Some meat, a lot of fruits and nuts and stuff like that. Humidity reliance. Preferred temperature, optimal flatness, migration propensity. So don't really migrate too much. Average herd size 25. Aggression. Shyness, speed, endurance, flying, activity level, base damage. Okay. Let's make bison. So basically what we'll do is we will examine when we iterate through all of our herds to decide their behavior, on that herd we'll have like an enumeration for what kind of animal it is, and then we'll point to this file to determine sort of the variables that plug into their behavior. Pigs are flying one. I don't think we're gonna have. We don't have any kind of long-term evolution plans. Amazon Prime. It can sort of end up in different environments, living in marginal situations, but bison, I guess. Let's see. Yeah, domestication, absolutely, positively. So if you've got bison, right, you've got like oryx or something like that nearby, or wild pigs, right, or just wild sheep and things like that, then sure. Let's see. Is bison really the right word? Let's see. 2 extant, 6 extinct species. What's another? Bison. Like, I'm not sure bovine. Bovine's a little too broad. The family lineage of bison, taurine cattle does not appear to be straightforward tree structure. My suspicion is we're going to be subdividing this later anyway. Yeah, European bison. Is it? I guess before I save this, I guess I'll go ahead and pull. Oh God. I haven't pulled since last week, so there's a good chance Calandial's modified it a bit. Just go ahead and delete you for now. Oh no, we're definitely looking at migrating fish for sure. Yeah, so we're gonna have herds in the ocean too, and so that can include marine mammals or fisheries, fish, and stuff like that. But that's going to take a good bit more work. A whole bunch of stuff added in for animals. Their herds. Alright, commence conflicts. Wow. Base damage flying. What change? Oh, is aquatic. Continent ID. Right, grass consumption. Okay. So. Resolve using theirs. I have no idea what this is all about. It's a meta file. Just nuke it. Okay. Okay. Okay, I'm still thinking. Okay, let's go ahead. Huh. Bison's still there? Oh, I guess I just didn't add it. Here, I'm gonna kill you. Goodbye. Okay, is aquatic continent ID. So I'm gonna need to open Wild Pigs 2 and revise them. There. Thanks for the reminder, by the way. Okay, so now let's go ahead and commit this to real quick. Okay. Okay, guys, so, oh, Jesus, this is kind of, get some light in here. It's kind of crazy because we're basically, this is technically the first time that I've worked on some, like, AI behavior type of stuff. Not ever, but with songs, it just feels kind of weird. Right, it just feels weird because I've been doing all of this. I've made things grow, I've done all the other stuff, but like, right, like what Isdar says, living things in the world, right? It's like, yeah, I've been talking about living worlds, sort of laying the landscape for living worlds all this time, but finally have something that's, I mean, Cal's kind of done some tribes and stuff like that, but it's the first time I've really had, like, the idea is these animals, these herds are actually going to be consuming things. They're going to be changing the environment. They're not just going to be layered on, right? The whole point of adding these herds in to begin with is because I needed to be able to create grasslands through grazing activities. So it's a milestone, I guess. Okay. So let's work on bison again. Elven War veteran. Yeah. And that's, yeah, it's, things are going to get interesting now. Like with the Python models that we were working on, we had grazers, but they weren't moving around. They were just kind of in the environment and static. It's going to be really interesting is seeing, like, we'll also probably want to model in some very basic diseases related to, like, herd density in certain areas, which will further... no, they'll be agents. They'll be agents, Normie Lord. So the idea is we want our animals to be moving around between provinces, depending on their attributes, right? Some animals will be moving quite a bit. Let me restart. Some animals will be moving around quite a bit, like bison, and others won't. And they all have, right, their different qualities. Oh no. I think we accidentally wiped out our deer. Oh well. We'll redo it. I don't feel like reverting just to get deer stats. Thanos Timmy. Kill the deer. We don't technically need them right now. We just need bison stats anyway. Alright, let's see if our land exclusion code worked properly. And let's figure out bison. Alright, let's get average size of bison. European bison, Jesus Christ. Wow. Okay, so let's say 800. And we're gonna make these guys manatees. Continent ID. Why is there a continent ID in here? Think about it later. Uh-oh, why are we stuck on placing moo-moos? It's kind of weird. Okay. Did we... No. Log anything out? No. Okay, so we have no cows in the ocean. We do have cows on land. Give them some qualities now. Let's read up first. I mean, I don't want to assume too much. Obviously, they're grazers, but they're going to basically eat any small plant, I suspect. They're in the trees. Bisons are nomadic grazers and travel in herds. The bulls leave the herds of females at 2 or 3 years of age. And join a herd of males, which are generally smaller than female herds. Mature bulls rarely travel alone. Towards the end of the summer, for reproductive season, the sexes necessarily commingle. American bison are known for living in the Great Plains, but formerly had a much larger range, including much of the eastern United States and parts of Mexico. See, that's cool. Alright, so you can see how they could sort of live in environments that they're slightly less specialized toward, like arid scrub and stuff like that. And there'd probably be less of them, but would still have a presence. But both species were hunted close to extinction during the 19th to 20th century. America, fuck yeah, shooting buffalo. Have since rebounded. The Wisent owing its survival in part to the Chernobyl disaster. Oh, that's interesting. As the Chernobyl exclusion zone has become a kind of wildlife preserve for Wisent and other rare megafauna. Huh. What is this Wisent you speak of? European auroch look like? That's kind of cool. You can really see that. Wow. Man, they were fucking huge. Well, I mean, they're what? The common ancestor of domesticated cattle, right? But I mean, you can see you can see how similar they are to bison, right? It's pretty cool. I mean, eventually I'd like to have a bunch of different bison, but it'd be nice if I came up with some method to automatically. So if you guys could make a bunch of different animals, right? And then I just write the code so that it picks up on all of the animals that you've added, and then just insert herds around. That way you can kind of play around and test with how they expand and stuff like that. Working on animals again, Solitarian. But right now we're kind of working with a bunch of animals in just kind of a larger kind of clade. So our bison really are standing in for every major grass grazer, although superficially similar, just so we can test. Physical and behavioral differences exist between American and European bison. Don't really care. Evolution and genetic history. The bovine tribe split about 5 to 10 million years ago into the buffaloes, and the group leading the bison and taurine cattle. Taurine cattle, right. Where we end up with our oryx, horses, and stuff like that. The problem is, I mean, these are specifically domesticated, at least. Well, European cattle are subspecies of domesticated cattle, right? Descended from the oryx, right? That's what I thought. Thereafter, the family lineage of bison and taurine cattle does not appear to be straightforward tree structure, as is often depicted in much evolution, because evidence of interbreeding and crossbreeding is seen between different species. That's interesting. Yak. You know what? Yaks are pretty cool. Those yaks, they have different kind of preferred ecosystem. Aren't yaks? I think yaks are almost like aren't they sort of like montane grassland type of? We'll get to you. We'll get to you, yaks. There's a montane grasslands. Grasslands, but just with some differing attributes, right? Lower soil temperature, doesn't tend to grow quite as tall or as fast, but in theory is still favorable for grazers, right? You can see in some cases it's quite short versus a tall grass prairie. However you spell it. Where the grass can get extremely tall and you have a lot more growth. That's cool. Okay. But that's what I mean. You see what I mean? So you can almost imagine, right, you could have a European auroch versus a yak, and yaks have a higher preferred temperature, so they'll tend to aggregate up in montane grasslands and that kind of thing. Genus bison diverged from the lineage that led to cattle. Can we get into their... Here we go. Wallowing is a common behavior of bison. Interesting. Possible explanations for such wallowing behavior include grooming behavior associated with molting, male-male interaction, social behavior for group cohesion, play behavior, relief from skin irritation due to biting insects, thermoregulation. Yeah, that all makes sense. Their most obvious weapon are the horns, borne by both males and females, but their massive heads can be used as battering rams, effectively using the momentum produced. But what is a typical weight of 90 to 120? Yeah, that makes sense. Moving at 50 kilometers per hour, the hind legs can also be used to kill or maim with devastating effect. In the words of early naturalists, they were dangerous, savage animals that feared no other animal and in prime condition could best any foe except wolves and bears. Okay. So, base damage. So this is an important point, right? So if we're going to have different races of potential hunters, right? Stuff like this matters, right? Base damage, because you're going to expect that something like a goblin hunter is not going to find it as cost effective to go hunting bison, whereas a gnoll, who is bigger and stronger and less likely to get killed by it, might be more interested in that kind of hunting, right? Whereas the goblin might be totally fine with chasing after deer and maybe even some pigs. American bison live in river valleys and on prairies and plains. Typical habitat is open or semi-open grassland as well as sagebrush. Yeah, semi-arid lands and scrublands, just like we were talking about. Some lightly wooded areas are also known historically to have supported bison. That's good to know. They also graze in hilly or mountainous areas where the slopes are not steep. Though not particularly known as high-altitude animals, I guess that would be where our yaks come in handy, frequently found at elevations above 80,000 feet. Throughout most of their historical range, landowners have... yeah, whatever. Skim. Okay. Finally. Yeah, riding dogs or something? I don't know. Vermin may not have... well, let's see what. The thing is, like... you can't, in fantasy, like, everyone's just riding everything, but in reality, for an animal to be rideable for any significant period of time, they need certain anatomical attributes. And like the kind like there's a reason why horses are what we ended up settling on riding, right? Because they are used to this kind of long periods of time on their feet, constantly on the move, right? Not particularly independently minded, right? I mean, dogs, I could imagine maybe goblins, like dogs are perfectly good for, using for sleds and things like that in the snow, but I'm not so sure how well a dog would ride. I don't know, maybe not. Something we could debate about. But that's a good point, Isdar. If you can breed a canine species that can handle a weight of another on it. But I would suspect that you wouldn't use... I don't think canines have the anatomy for being used as draft animals. I could totally imagine using them for short distance hunting, right? And I mean, yeah, even warfare, right? But I don't imagine you'd use them as pack animals in most situations unless they were pulling a sled or something. Yeah, but that's the thing, Amazon, is it has to be in the right kind of conditions. And particularly when, like, other types of animals aren't as effective. That's why, like, you see dogs as draft animals, in the cold, right? Because you're dragging something through snow, which doesn't have a lot of resistance. But, like, even goblins could use small horses and stuff like that, like little marsh tackies. Or ponies. Yeah, riding harpies might be reasonable, but I guess the issue is, like, harpies are already intelligent, and so it's like, I guess the only reason you'd want to do it is if you wanted to have a lance or something like that, or a bowman. Anyway, diet. Bison are ruminants, which gives them the ability to ferment plants in a specialized stomach prior to digesting them. Bison were once thought to almost exclusively consume grasses and sedges, but are now known to consume a wide variety of plants. You know what? I just realized something. Let me write this down now. So, for fuck's sake. So we remember. We don't want animals to eat from plants directly, necessarily. We want to calculate eligible food in the province. Then apply those losses afterward. What a deer or pig would eat from grass, very different than what bison would eat. Get from it due to specialized adaptations. Okay. Yeah, I'd be curious, and it goes back to what I was saying, Isdar, about them being used in the Arctic. Like, it seems like there's a good there's special anatomical considerations for sort of why they would be effective in the Arctic as opposed to other animals, right? And why you don't see dogs dragging around, payload anywhere else, pretty much. I can't think of a single example of anyone using a dog to, a merchant to drag a... Have you ever seen a team of dogs dragging around a merchant's cart or something down a road? Nope. But it's like, what is it specifically about dogs in a snowy environment that makes them more effective than horses? And my assumption is, like, you have this flat kind of terrain where there's very little friction. Anyway, not to get too distracted. It's obviously a pretty narrow edge case. Over the course of the year, bison shift their plants they select in their diet based on the plants which have highest protein or energy concentrations at a given time, and more reliably consume the same species of plants across the year. Protein concentrations of the plants they eat tend to be highest in the spring and decline thereafter, reaching their lowest in winter. In Yellowstone National Park, Bison browsed willows and cottonwoods. Bison are thought to migrate to optimize their diet and will concentrate their feeding on recently burned areas due to the higher quality forage that regrows after the burn. Fascinating. Wisent tend to browse on shrubs and low-hanging trees more often than do the American bisons. It's a cool point, though. Young bison typically do not reproduce until 3 years of age and can reproduce to at least 19 years of age. Female bison can produce calves annually as long as their nutrition is sufficient, but will not give birth to a calf after years where weight gain was too low. A mother's probability of reproduction the following year is strongly dependent on the mother's mass and age. That makes sense. Heavier female bison produce heavier calves than light mothers. Also makes sense. No, we're all working on it. Everyone's got ideas. Appreciate everyone participating. If you need to add animals, start differentiating our major clades. Keep in mind, we want to primarily track animals which have track keystone species, which either have a large influence on the environment or which have significant uses to intelligent races. In theory, though, since we're generalizing animal behavior, we could have a lot of different herd types in the future. So let's start fleshing out some of this here. Is aquatic? No. Grass consumption. Imagine they would rip up young conifers. Consumption. Oh, that's a specifically interesting adaptation. The feet component, right? That's probably. I imagine cloven hooved animals might have some serious issues in snow for a prolonged period of time. That's pretty cool. Tails to protect face from freezing. What? I don't really get that one. But that's cool. Yeah, and solitarian, that might be a good idea too. Fruit consumption, I'm not so sure. I imagine they prefer less humid environments. Preferred temperature. Wild pigs preferred. Probably prefer pretty flat environment. Migration propensity is going to be pretty high. Average herd size. Well, we'll have to figure that out. Shyness. Aggression. Probably not super aggressive. I don't think they're super aggressive. Speed. Reasonably fast. Well, endurance. Pretty high endurance, right? Flying, no. Activity level. Pretty much always grazing. Base damage, can do a good bit of damage. So later on when we start differentiating species a lot, they'll be split up, you know, they'll start out on a specific continent. But I feel like, I don't know, I'll have to talk to Cal about it, because I feel like continent ID sort of needs to be something that's assigned somehow after world generation. I don't know. Will endurance be affected by terrain types? Hooved animals generally struggle with mountainous areas. That is. So, for instance, things like optimal flatness, right, will multiply into that. But some animals just, in general, have pretty shitty endurance regardless of what terrain they're living in. Like your felids just don't have tons of endurance relative to... predators in general seem to have, in general, less endurance than grazing animals. That kind of thing. I mean, what's funny is humans as hunters have some of the highest endurance of any predator, like, in the world. And I think that's partly due to the fact of how we hunted a lot of the time, and that we were also omnivores roaming around, foraging as well. Like, in all of the caveman documentaries, you see like, someone running up with a spear and jabbing it into a mammoth, and the mammoth falls over, and it's like, it probably didn't happen that way, right? It was much more likely as like, oh, look, there's a wounded animal over there, let's throw a bunch of darts at it. It gets upset with a bunch of darts in its ass, and it runs away, and so then you chase it, and then you hit it with more darts, and then it runs away again, and you follow it for, X number of kilometers, right, over a long period of time, and eventually it falls over and dies, right? It's probably way more similar to the way humans hunted than just, like, the way that, like, a wolf pack or a cheetah or a lion would hunt, which is this burst of activity, kill it with your superior weapons and intelligence, and then eat it a few minutes later. But anyway, Reproduction. Female bison typically do not reproduce until 3 years of age and can reproduce to at least 19 years of age. Probably not going to be tracking age category. That's kind of cool. Those wolves are beautiful animals. Predators. Owing their size, bison have few predators. 5 notable exceptions are humans: the wolf, cougar, brown bear, and coyote. Coyotes? I guess they go after the babies or something. The gray wolf generally takes down a bison while in a pack, but cases of a single wolf killing a bison have been reported. Impressive. Brown bear also consume bison. Often by driving off the pack and consuming the wolf's kill. That's interesting. Brown bear and coyotes also prey on bison calves. Brown bear and coyotes also prey on bison calves. Historically... yeah, that was the coyotes. Historically and prehistorically, lions, tigers, and dire wolf. That's so cool if that's like a real thing. Had posed threats to bison. For the American bison, the main cause of illness is malignant catarrhal fever. Through brucellosis is a serious concern in Yellowstone. I'm curious about this now. Nice. Fatal disease caused by a group of ruminant herpes viruses. These viruses cause apparent infection in their reservoir host and wildebeest, but are usually fatal in cattle and other ungulates. Usually sporadic, although infection of up to 40% of the herd has been reported. Reasons for this are unknown. Some species appear to be particularly susceptible. Valley cattle and bison. There are many factors that increase the chances of infection. I imagine density of the herd would be a major factor, which is something we want to use as a controlling factor. The amount of animals in the herd, population density, and species of susceptible host. Okay, there you have it. Other factors include closeness of contact and the amount of virus available. Okay, so that's the important part, right? Yeah, I would say so. Solitarian. We may need to expand the criteria a bit. Holy fuck. America. God. Jesus. It's like... killing all the bison until they're near extinction. Yeah, that's the American way. Bison is an excellent source. This is something that's important to you. Excellent source of complete protein and rich source of multiple vitamins, including riboflavin, blah, blah, blah. And it's also a rich source of minerals, including iron, phosphate, zinc. Okay. I think that's about all we need to know about bison. Let's flesh out their remaining values. It's called biome. What? Food consumption, humidity reliance. for temperature, aggression. I guess we got everything, didn't we? I think. Aquatic. Flatness. Yeah, I think we're good. Let's read about yaks real quick. Yaks from Yakistan. Aw, hello, yak. Yeah, pretty damn cute. I want me a yak. Hybrid yak, relationship with humans. Yak racing. Thousands of years, primarily for their milk, fiber, and meat, beasts of burden. Their dried droppings are an important fuel used all over Tibet. They're often only fuel available on high treeless Tibetan plateaus. Makes sense. Yaks transport goods across mountain passes for local farmers and traders. Only one thing makes it hard to use yaks for long journeys in barren regions. They will not eat grain, which could be carried on the journey. That's interesting. So you basically need some kind of highway of grass and forage. They will starve unless they can be brought to a place where there is grass. They also are used to draw plows. Yak's milk is often processed to cheese called chirpy. I'm liking yaks. I want me some chirpy. Look at all that chirpy. I kind of wanted more information about their... Okay, well, here we go. Yak physiology is well adapted to high altitudes, having large lungs and... Oh gosh, that's something we did not even consider. Lung capacity? Or altitude preference. Having larger lungs and heart than cattle found at lower altitudes, as well as greater capacity for transporting oxygen through their blood. Due to the persistence of fetal hemoglobin throughout life. Conversely, yaks have trouble thriving at lower altitudes and are prone to suffering from heat exhaustion above about 15 degrees Celsius. Further adaptations to cold include a thick layer of subcutaneous fat and almost complete lack of functional sweat glands. Fascinating. Compared with domestic cattle, the rumen of yaks is unusually large relative to Amazon. Why is that? This likely allows them to consume greater quantities of low-quality food at a time. Okay, what's considered lower quality? Probably like shit like this, right? It's like tree branches and stuff like that. Question. Let's read up on goats real quick. I've been meaning to read up on goat diets because interesting thing about goats is apparently one of the reasons they're so great as domestic animals is like you can graze them in extremely substandard lands. Like apparently they're pretty good shrub grazers. Aside from sampling many things, goats are reputed to be willing to eat almost anything, including tin cans, cardboard boxes. While goats will not actually eat inedible material, they are browsing animals, not grazers like cattle and sheep. Interesting. So they're selective. They'll like taste, and then specifically end up consuming the things that taste good. They will chew on and taste about anything remotely resembling plant matter to decide whether it is good to eat, including cardboard, clothing, and paper. The unusual smells of leftover food and discarded cans or boxes may further stimulate their curiosity. Aside from sampling many things, goats are quite particular on what they actually consume, preferring to browse on tips of woody shrubs and trees. Cool. As well as the occasionally broadleaf plant. However, it can fairly be said that their plant diet is extremely varied and includes some species which are otherwise toxic. They will seldom consume soiled food and contaminated water unless facing starvation. This is one reason goat rearing is the most often free-ranging, since stall-fed goat rearing involves extensive upkeep. Right, so what's interesting is like goats make inhabiting like marginal scrublands more plausible because you can send them out to kind of to browse on all of those shrubs without having to really pay much attention to them, and which normally would not support the larger grazing animals. And you can't have nearly as high a density of goats on that kind of land, but it's like better than nothing, right? Goats prefer to browse on vines such as kudzu, on shrubbery, and on weeds. More like deer than sheep, preferring them to grasses. Nightshade is poisonous. Wilted fruit tree leaves can also kill goats. Silage and haylage can be used if consumed immediately after opening. Goats are particularly sensitive to listeria bacteria that can grow in fermented feeds. Alfalfa, a high-protein plant, is widely fed as hay. In various places in China, goats are used in the production of tea. Goats are released onto the tea terraces where they avoid consuming the green tea leaves, which contain bitter-tasting substances, but instead eat the weeds. How cool. And I was about to say the goat droppings then probably fertilize the tea plants. Wow, so that's really cool. That's almost like it's almost like the way that clover, like you can use different plants to kind of supplement your agriculture, like clover. That's really cool. We'll have to remember that. Yeah, no, Unam, that's exactly what I had in mind for goblins, that they would be really common goat herders in sort of like broadly dispersed in scrublands. That'd be really cool. We should have had goats in the goblin illustration. That would have been cool. That's a cool, super cool phenomenon, though. The digestive physiology of a very young kid, like the young of other ruminants, is essentially the same as that of monogastric animals. Milk digestion begins in the abysm. Not really important. The adult size of the milk having bypassed the rumen closure. Okay. The adult size of a particular goat is a product of its breed and its diet while growing. As well as with all livestock, increased protein diets and sufficient calories should increase reproductive rates, right? Higher growth rates. Yeah, okay. Large framed goats with greater skeletal size reach maturity weight at a later age. Typical R and K selected stuff. Large framed goats need more calories. Yep. Okay. Okay. I think what we also need to do is we need herding animals that are accustomed to larger herds to have a larger effective breeding population, so we don't have bison in minuscule numbers inhabiting shitty land, right? I'll be right back. Hold on. Alright, I think we've learned enough to start coding, I think. As long as our curiosity doesn't divert us anymore. There's our bison. Okay. So, here we are placing a bunch of herds. So now what we want to do, I think placing them, I think for now we can just place them 5 per province. And we can actually use it to test their dispersion and whether they die off. Right, because if we plunk 5 of them in a dinky little province somewhere, they're going to want to move. They're going to consume whatever is there and want to move around. If they're in a place that can't support them, their population should crash. Or if it's just an unfavorable environment, right? Maybe we should not let them appear in ice. Oh, apparently they... Do they? I guess they do in some cases. Right, so... If they're not temperature tolerant, they should die. But that's all going to have to be factored into their survival. Alright, so we have some moving parts here. Whatever they eat too, we want them to return to that province. Like, so, if they eat a bunch of grass in a province, we want... to increase the organics of that province, which is something that needs to exist in our code. We'll have to add that in later, I think. Okay, so we have this thing called new herd. Are they valid by default? Can we even set it to true? No, as a method group. I think they're true by default. New herd, it's valid bounds, province size, species. Did we? I think we have to run. I think we have to run some Lua scripts somewhere. So we know we have wild pigs. Does it pick up wild pigs? No, I'm not sure how we actually assign here. Here, let's look up our definition. Sorry, I'll be right back. Yeah, I'm streaming. Species gets. Is there a set? Is there a set function? There's a get type. Line equals endurance, continent ID. Right. No, that just gets the, see, but I want to, oh, species, right, so that basically taps the folder. Yeah, I kind of see. So when you're calling a species, you're grabbing its innate qualities, but I want to actually set its type. Size, province, species. Health. Size, cal hash. Not a lot of choices. I think it's. Yeah, where it's. We have to assign its province ID too. So let's. Care of that now. Species is valid, is aquatic. Yes. Yeah, this is species is tapping into its qualities, but we haven't assigned it a species, so yeah. Okay, plan deal. So if you're out there listening, basically create a new variable called new herd, assign it a bunch of stuff. Making a list of then those herds. Actually, this is kind of screwy. This needs to be done later? No, actually, this code's probably screwy. I think we need to make the list up here, add the herds in, and then afterward hold on. Internet is half dead and I can't load Twitch. Okay, let me mute this. Hey, let me share screen. Yeah, I just sort of had done some basic punting herds into the world, and mainly I've just been doing research for now on bison.
So my idea was to look over provinces and then look over all defined animals and decide on the province level if that particular species should be spawned in a province.
Well, I mean, that's the long-term plan. Right now, I just want to play around with basic behavior. And so initially, like, long-term, the idea is, like, come up with a procedural way to assign, you know, a bunch of different animal types based on sort of what their species conditions are. Right now, I just want to, like, plop a bunch of bison in the world, define some basic behavior, have them move around.
There's a bison in the code, per se. So you have to look over animal species, and you can then spawn all of them if you want, but you cannot get a bison without looping over species. If that makes sense.
But if the herd is defined, if the herd that you make is assigned the value of bison, then you just loop through every animal. Like the point is, at no point is my intention to loop over animal types. The point is just loop over all animals. The code is completely agnostic to what kind of animal it is. Can
I explain something?
Okay.
You want to assign species to herds, right? That's what your original issue.
Yes. Mm-hmm.
You cannot get your species without looping over the vector of species when you're spawning them for the first time.
Where does that exist?
It exists as any other kind of entity with animal species SOA or something. Can you go to Visual Studio?
Yeah, I'm in Visual Studio. Oh, whoops. Sorry, I'm sharing the wrong screen. I want to share screen. Okay.
So it's looks like you're looping over provinces, right?
Yeah.
Now, inside that for loop, after you get your province from integer, you should add a second for loop over the animal vector.
I see.
Not here, because that's why in this loop? Why in this loop?
Shouldn't we just do it here?
Yeah, I think what we want to do is, I think you want to replace the for loop you currently have and replace it with a for loop over animal species.count as opposed to 5.
Let me just do this. Let me.
You can keep this. You can keep this.
Right, but basically this would loop instead over
of 5
all species or whatever, right?
Yeah.
That kind of thing. What is the actual vector name, global vector name for the vector of species?
Animal species.count. I mean, there is no vector of species. There's a special collection which contains all the properties. It's not animal species.
Oops. Hold on, I messed something up.
What is animal species.count? It should also complete if it says them. I think that should be I2, not 0. Yeah, and now you can do the same trick you did with provinces. That is, you can do animal species dots from int.
Hold on. Okay, so we're looking for our provinces. We're going through all. Right, and then so depending on how many we actually want to add in here of a given species.
Could you get the species first?
Okay, so
can you get the species first from the vector with your integer? Yeah,
something like that.
Int. Not from how it works. It's from int. It's not an array. It works exactly the same way for every type in the game.
Okay, but
you need to do the same thing you did with the province in line 26.
Right.
Species involved. Yeah. And this will create basically something like a reference to the animal species under this index.
right.
And now you also need animal check.
Right,
like
so
with provinces.
right.
Animal type dot is valid.
Right, so so in theory, long term, right? So let's say I go ahead and I start.
You still need the for loop. This will crash.
You mean like this?
You still need the if condition. This will crash.
If, but what?
because animal type could be null.
Animal type could be what?
Your variable called animal type could be null. It could be something that doesn't exist. Because the animal species vector contains all the available slots for animal IDs, so there will be some that are filled with actual species, and there will be some that are empty.
Oh,
and
so
you need to fill out the empty ones.
Oh, so is valid. So they need to be an is valid species, right?
Yes.
Because they're allocated. They may be allocated, but not be. It could just be empty, right?
Yes.
Okay. So I thought you were saying mule. I'm like, what? They need to be mule? Like.
No.
Okay. So basically, whoops. We need to basically, if animal type.
Dot is valid.
Yeah.
Yes, and now you can, in this scope, you can do whatever you want with the animal type.
Right.
I don't know how many animal types you have, but so presumably the long-term solution would be to have a condition to check for like temperature and stuff before deciding to store it. Right?
Say that again.
So like the long-term condition, so the long-term approach would be to have some conditions on like the type of the province or the temperature and stuff.
Look, it's you.
That's me. I'm a blue monster.
No, yeah, no.
Hello.
Oh yeah. Okay. Look, this is me, everybody. Yeah. Okay. Thank you, Ellie.
And you know, this is the
What?
picture, and that's mommy's computer, and this is the mirror, and that's the drawer.
That's mommy's
And this-
computer. Okay.
And this is your blanket, and this is mommy's blanket.
Good.
These are pillows, and this is the...
Yeah, that's all
This is
stuff
the
you drew
whole bag.
yourself. Yeah. Good job.
Mm-hmm.
Thank you.
And I spelled Daddy and Ellie.
Oh, let me see. That's some pretty good spelling. Are you sure mommy wasn't the one that did that? Because it looks pretty neat.
I'm sure.
Really? Good job then.
Yeah, that's because it's all clean.
I know, you did a really good job, Ellie. My kids are we homeschool them on weekends now because
With all the COVID, all that COVID madness.
yeah, Martin County, my county, has among, like, I think is in the top 10 infection rates for counties for children in the country. It's like, yeah. So no, we're not sending our kids to school. Not with Ellie's chronic lung. So
Yeah. Better to not tempt the hay.
yeah. Okay, so yeah, go start again.
If you add this loop, you'll be spawning 5 of each animal.
Oh, I mean, there's going to be more complex conditions, you know, that are going to...
Okay.
So the idea is, like, we want to iterate... So ideally, we'd want to iterate through every province and then every potential animal species, pick up on the conditions in the province, and then determine this is what we can reasonably expect to end up with. And based on how many animals we actually have from different types of biomes, we can scale the probability of a given animal appearing, you know, at a given in a given province.
This is for you.
Oh, thank you.
That's fine.
So that way we can sort of like be like, oh, we want to have X number of herds. Bye. We want to have X number of herds, and then we can kind of shoot for that target and sort of scale them.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. So yeah, we can do it. Right now, like, all I'm really interested in doing is like, it's just to kind of.
Get a feel for it.
Yeah, it's this chicken and egg situation more like, especially when it comes to certain biomes like grasslands, like it's sort of they need to develop in tandem, you know. We need animals there, but then we also need the plants to be there, but then that influences how the ant. So I'm kind of going to tune both of them as we go, and hopefully that'll give us realistic results. But so this should be good, I think. I3. Right, so now we can go ahead.
Now we can copy that bit from the bottom with the nuclear thing and addition. And addition at the end. You also need the addition.
second. So we have herds. Now the adding to the list.
Oh yeah, I guess it could. I guess this could. Yeah, that's fine. Okay.
Right. So technically, we only at the very end, right? We go ahead and say, okay, now we move the list to whatever our herd happens.
Well, that's trying to pause ago. Yeah. So right now the species, the herd doesn't have any species, but you can assign it if you modify new herd before you add it to the list.
So I mean, so we want to assign everything before we add it to the list, right?
Yes. So like you have those species and you can assign animal type.
Right. So the question is, where does animal type go? It would just be.
Can you type in new herd? Now it won't autocomplete because okay, never mind. So species, I think.
Oh yeah, those I do. Hold on. Let me just do this. Yeah. So it just should be species here equals animal type, right?
Yeah.
Okay.
Now you will have a valid reference on the herd, which we'll be able to use.
Right. Okay. So anytime in the future now when we check species, we then can, so let's say whatever the variable happens to be, we'd say, oh, I want to know what species endurance is or whatever, or whether it's flying or fruit consumption.
Yes.
But it's tricky because some of these are referencing the file, but others are going to be referencing their condition at the moment. But it wouldn't be species, it would just be...
At the moment, unless, no.
It would just be the generalized stuff, right?
Species type should be referencing their condition.
Well, when we're specifically interested in the generalized herd conditions, it's just new herd dot condition, right? But then when we want to know innate species qualities, then we check species, right?
Yes, what I'm saying is that nothing under the species type should be modified after loading.
Right, yeah. Once it's set, it's just referencing the file, which should never change, right?
Well, it's referencing what it's loaded from the file.
Right, yeah. It should never change in runtime, I guess is what I'm saying, right?
Yeah. We didn't add any checks for it, because that would be a giant pain in the ass. So yeah.
Yeah. Okay, let's go ahead and see if our herds get made then.
They should.
If animal type is valid, we need to actually check. So it'll make 5 herds for each animal type at the moment, right?
Yes.
So we should end up with 15 herds in every land tile.
That's quite a bit more than the 5 we talked about.
Well, fortunately, I excluded all of the ocean tiles for the time being.
Wild pigs underwater? I see no problem with that.
Swimming pigs. Pigs can swim. Come on. Still surprising that it takes so long to create them. Is that supposed to be the case? So for instance,
we can look into it in a bit.
So, I mean, I think just see. So we're stuck on placing moo-moos. We've been there for 15 or 20 seconds, still going up. Maybe we got stuck somewhere. Let's see. Yeah.
I don't think we did. I mean, you could just expand the window a bit and it would... But I don't think there were any errors.
Yeah.
Is that job compiled? Is that job burst compiled?
I don't think it is, but I'm still surprised that it would take that long. It seems now like it's just hanging. But I don't know. I guess we'll see.
Yeah, this shouldn't be taking this long. I mean, sure now. I think you should look the way around.
Let's see. Where is this normally placed? It's usually placed right.
I think you should look the way around. I think you should look over animals first and then over.
Well, let me go. Yeah. So go for the provinces. Iterate
because the move rate for animals is much higher than provinces. It does make sense.
Yeah, I mean, but would it take like a minute and a half so far just to iterate through everything?
How many provinces are there and how many?
So how many land provinces? I don't know, maybe 10,000.
It's in world defines.
Let me stop it and do it again with burst compile.
Did it work fine before?
No, yeah, sure. When I was making when I was just generating herds without assigning species, it was fine. And I was generating five herds per province. And clicked on the province and saw that there was 5 herds in each one. List.
There wouldn't be this shallow.
No.
Because my conjecture would be that animal creation, herd creation, but if you were able to assign 5 per province, it shouldn't be that much longer now.
No, it shouldn't. I mean, it shouldn't, in theory, it shouldn't be any longer than assigning like water bodies or whatever. I mean, there's a lot fewer water bodies, but, well, I mean, there's a lot of rivers, so. And that never really slowed things down. Oh, now it was fine? Hold on. What's going on here?
Burst compiler modeling, yay.
Apparently when it's not burst compile, it takes 1,000 times longer. Not even an exaggeration. Okay.
I coded it in a way that is absolutely terrible for C#, but very optimal for burst. Like the way it works is it usually could not be worse for C#. Like for native C#.
Right.
Not for the
Okay, here come the moo-moos after vegetation. 60%, 70%, 80%. Oh wait, now are we stuck? Oh no, okay, so it cleared. Alright, so it took maybe 2 seconds.
I think we're fine.
Okay. And we should have 10 or 15 herds in each tile? Yes.
Speaking of, could we test debug mode in the burst compiler?
Ooh, what do you mean exactly?
Because I updated burst compiler to the latest, and it should now be capable of doing debug logs from within compiled jobs.
Oh, okay. So that's interesting. So, what kind of debug though? Just like this?
I think you have to save. Yeah, maybe this will work. You can try. I'm not sure if this doesn't have. I mean, shouldn't this be one line lower?
Yes. Well, if province is true, I shouldn't. Well, first off, here, let me do this. Let me just keep this commented out, and then let me just do a singular log somewhere. Here we go.
I think you have to change the content of that log.
Yeah. We just want to see if it works, right? Whoops, I totally saved. I did not see it log anything out. Hold on, let me.
You can search for it.
Yeah, that's what I'm doing now.
Oh, I see.
No, it did not appear.
Cool, then I have more work to do.
Well, it didn't crash anything. Do I need to preface it? I mean, I think Unity Engine is being used, right?
Yeah, that doesn't matter.
Yeah.
It wouldn't compile if there was ambiguity.
Yeah.
Could you show me what version of the Bruce compile? I mean, of the product?
What version of the what?
Of the Bruce compiler. It's in Window Package Manager. And then if you load packages and one of them is called Bruce. Yeah, okay, never mind then. This should, okay, you can close it, I saw the version. It was like 1.4. So yeah, I'm not sure what's wrong because according to the documentation, this should work. And it doesn't. So that's a bit distressing. But anyhow, I think you have the animals, so
Alright.
yeah.
Should be good. I'll just play around with sort of province adjacency and then moving and should be good. Alright, cool. See ya.
See ya.
Alright, I'm gonna break for some lunch and I have to do a few things with some Duke work. I've had a really busy week and then I'll come back and work on this some more. See ya.